welcome to Just a Minute. Thank you. Hello. My name is Nicholas Parsons, and as the Minute Waltz fades away, once more it's my huge pleasure to welcome our many listeners, not only in this country, but around the world, but also to welcome 4 talented, humorous individuals who are going to play just a minute and talk on a subject that I give them, and they will try and do that without hesitation, repetition, or deviation. And those 4 are, seated on my right, Paul Merton and Fee Glover, and seated on my left, Gyles Brandreth and Tony Hawks. Please welcome all 4 of them. And seated beside me is Trudy Stevens, who's going to help me keep the score and blow a whistle when the 60 seconds is up. And if my voice doesn't sound exactly like Nicholas Parsons, it's because I have a rather severe cold, but I'm keeping going in the old show business tradition. I don't know what I'm talking about, but it's all good stuff. And we're going to begin the show anyway with Gyles Brandreth. Gyles, painting the ceiling. I'm sure it's something you've indulged in many times, but tell us something about that subject in this game, starting now.
Reincarnation is a wonderful phenomenon, and it is not generally known that in an earlier life, many centuries ago, I was a doe-eyed, olive-skinned boy called Guido, working in Italy as the assistant to Michelangelo. We lay there day after phenomenon day.
Tony challenge.
Repetition of day.
Yes, indeed, yes. Yeah. Tony, a correct challenge, a point to you.
We don't question the reincarnation bit.
Yeah.
It's repetition of the word day.
Well, we get such much fantasy in this world, it keeps it going, doesn't it? Yeah. 43 seconds are available, Tony. Painting the ceiling, starting now.
I have 2 Italian builders who paint my ceiling, Michael and Angelo, and they are terrific. They come round and none of the paint drops on the floor. And this is the real secret to it. You can try all sorts of methods, the brush if you like, the roller, get up the step, but the most important thing is to do it with passion. And when they're not available, that's what I do. I begin at 9 a.m. on the dot, cup of tea finished, and in I go. Up that ceiling is there for me to...
Pick a word, any word. Up there, ceiling is where I go, where I am. He's learned English from his builders.
So
deviation.
Deviation, yes, indeed, Paul. And you've got him with point to you, of course, and 12 seconds are still available. Painting the ceiling, starting now.
You have to decide what colour you're going to paint it, whether it's going to be an emulsion, gloss, or something else. You dip the brush firmly into the coloured liquid. You hold it up to your eye line. You thrust it towards the ceiling.
So that powerful rendition of the whistle by Trudy Stevens tells us that 60 seconds have elapsed, and Paul Merton was speaking at that moment, so he gets an extra point for doing so, and he's taken the lead. Fee Glover, will you take the next round?
Yes.
Or start the next round? The subject is the eye of the beholder. Tell us something about that subject in this game, starting now.
The eye of the beholder is one of those rather unfortunate, patronising phrases that people use when they want to let you down gently. I have another one. When I was about 11 or 12 years old, I said to my mum, I think I'm getting a little bit chubby. And she said to me, you are made in God's own image, which has left me with a terrifying vision in my head of a Lord above us all, apologies to those people in the audience and listening who have great faith, who has chipolatas for legs. Because when I was in my early adolescence, if you can imagine, when you go into a butcher's of an Italian variety, they sometimes have big chorizos hanging from the ceiling, a little bit rotund up there and a little bit rotund down there.
All right, Tony challenge.
Oh, yes, of course.
What?
2 little bits.
I was too rotund.
And
Well, that was the problem.
That
That was the problem.
And also, darling, you got from the eye of the beholder, you've gone into something quite different.
I know, but nobody stopped me. They wanted to hear about my chubby thighs.
I know.
They were happy.
Just loved hearing from you. But, Tony, you've got in with 10 seconds to go. The eye of the beholder, starting now.
The expression goes, beauty is in the eye of the beholder, which is why it's possible for people to fancy all sorts of extraordinarily unattractive...
So Tony Hawks was then speaker as a whistle when gained that extra point. and he's moved forward. He's one ahead of Paul Merton. He's in the lead. And Tony, we'd like you to begin the next round, and the subject is paperwork. Tell us something about that subject in this game, starting now.
Several weeks ago, when I was on this show, I was given the subject 3D printing and talked a little bit about the paper that went inside.
Paul, challenge.
This audience won't know what you're talking about. They won't.
I know, but some weeks ago.
It was. They might conceivably have heard it on the radio a couple of months ago, but I doubt if they would have remembered it.
Mind you, I think some of them have come back, because I do recognise some of them.
Well, outside of the Metropolitan Police that are following your every move at the moment, who else do you recognise out there?
So what is your challenge within the rules of just a minute?
Oh, well, you got me there.
We'll give you a bonus point because we enjoyed the interruption. Tony, you were interrupted. You get a point for that. 52 seconds available. Paperwork starting now.
A lot of people cannot abide paperwork. They leave it for months, it piles up on the tables. But not me. I simply adore it. There's nothing I like more than a bill from BT to analyse. Or perhaps something from the tax office. I pull up a chair, get myself a nice gin and tonic, and soon I'm away with the fairies, whoever they are. They shouldn't really be there during that kind of busy activity. Extraordinary that I've managed to go quite this long on this subject, and...
Charles challenge.
Self-confessed deviation.
No.
Oh.
Yes.
He's still on the subject.
He's away with the fairies. He's now telling us it's extraordinary that he's managed to go so long without actually telling us anything about paperwork at all.
Giles, I'm sorry to interrupt. He's told us a lot about paperwork, his own paperwork, and how it actually gets carried away with the fairies when he's doing it. Yeah. So I don't think he's deviated.
If that's the way you feel, Nicholas, of course.
Well, that's the way I'm going to adjudicate on it, Giles.
Is there a counsellor in the house?
Tony, incorrect challenge. You have another point. You have 16 seconds. Paperwork starting now.
I always like to make my paper work.
Giles challenge.
A repetition of like.
Yes, you said at the beginning you like to do it and sit down with your gin and tonic. Ooh. Right.
It's true.
Did you hear Crossrail go right underneath? Did you hear it?
Charles, you've cleverly got in this time correctly. And with 14 seconds to go, and you've got not another point, you've got his first point. Paperwork with you, Gyles. 14 seconds starting now.
Nicholas will remember the late, great Robert Harbin, who was a magician and paperworker.
Paul challenge.
Judging by the look on Nicholas's face, I say he doesn't remember it.
Paul, you are...
Who was Robert Harbin? You remember?
He was a conjurer. Yes, I know. He was one of the early conjurers.
Yes,
he was
that's
on
right.
television,
yes.
I knew Robert Harbin. I didn't know him personally.
No.
I saw him work. You pulled jokes about my age, but I'm old enough to remember Robert Harbin vividly.
Mm.
And
so the face was just boredom.
The face?
The face that Paul picked up on.
I buzzed because you reacted as if you didn't know who Robert Harbin was.
I knew who Robert Harbin was.
Well, your face was lying to me.
Right. You were telling me I didn't know who Fanny Craddock was.
That was my next point.
It's the cold. I'm losing it. Sorry. Paul, incorrect challenge.
Absolutely.
9 seconds for you, Giles, on paperwork starting now.
Bob was a genius at origami, and out of paperwork he could create the Taj Mahal using a mere manila envelope. The whole of the Vatican City he could...
So, Giles Brandreth was speaking as a whistleway, gained that extra point, and he's moved forward. He's equal with Paul Merton in second place. Tony Hawkes is in the lead. Fee Glover's yet to score. And Paul, it's your turn to begin. The subject is 10 things to do during a power cut. A moment or two to think about it.
Yes.
60 seconds as usual, starting now.
You can listen to the radio, you can abdicate.
Tony challenge.
A repetition of You Can.
You can,
Oh, God.
yes.
Well, that's one thing you can do in a power cut. You can repeat yourself.
Tony, correct challenge, 57 seconds.
57 seconds. If I'd counted from 1 to 10, that would have been longer.
I'm going to have a cough. Right, it's over, I hope. Do you know, when we first started playing this game over 40 years ago, it was an unwritten rule. You didn't challenge within the first 15 seconds. But then, of course, it became ridiculous because then could you challenge later as well? And I think it was a bad rule, and it was stopped. And there was an occasion where it didn't work then, and he challenged within 3 seconds, and he got a laugh from it. And so I wish I hadn't started this. Because
Do you want someone to buzz in?
Where was the bloody cough when you needed it?
Tony, 57 seconds on 10 things to do during a power cut, starting now.
Consider meditation. It's all the rage now. Mindfulness. You don't need power, electrical kind, anyway to do that. Just over the mind. Now, because I've got to talk about 10, I'm not going to stick on that, but I'm going to start to flesh out.
Giles challenge.
Self-advertised deviation. I'm not going to stick on that. You have to. That's the rule of the game.
I'm not going to stick on meditation. I'm going to tell you the other night.
Yes, that was the meaning I certainly got from that.
And certainly as chairman, that's what I got as well.
Yes,
Giles. Right.
That's good.
38 seconds, Tony. Still with you, and another point, of course. 10 things to do during a power cut, starting now.
Why not start a fire? Get all the furniture in the house, take the matches, strike them, and whoosh, you will see your...
I'm sorry, we can't be instructed on how to light a fire. I mean, this is ludicrous.
No, I think that's deviation. In a power cut,
Well, it's a very
light a
sensible
fire.
thing to do.
No, you could light coal
see
fire.
with a fire. With power cut, you can't see.
Well, can I just suggest my 10 things?
What, how many have you done so far?
2.
2. Bloody hell. I mean, really?
Yeah, I see your
There's
point.
another 8 like that.
During a power cut, you light a fire and you keep warm, can't you?
Yes.
Meditation and pyromania. These seem to be the two things you've got to offer.
No, so far it's good. Meditation, light a fire.
Right, and keep
I
warm with the
wouldn't
fire.
make this my specialist subject if I went on Mastermind. No, I was given the bloody subject. I'm doing my best.
I'm interested,
Oh, thank
Tony.
you,
I'm
thank you.
very interested.
Right, 10 things to do during a power cut, Tony. 26 seconds still available, starting now.
If you had a piano or a guitar, one could begin to play those. Invite neighbours over. Have a sing-song. Think of the joy that could be...
To Giles challenge.
Repetition of one.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Well, listen, Giles. So the laugh was because Giles pulls himself together and he's got the subject and 15 seconds to tell us something about 10 things to do during a power cut, starting now.
Because of the blessing of reincarnation, I can take you back to the time when I was the Minister for Power in 1941 in Churchill's coalition government.
Tony challenge.
No, you weren't.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I was.
What was your name?
My name was Reg Prentice.
You're not Reg Prentice, you're Giles Brandreth.
No, but I was reincarnated as Reg Prentice. I was the Minister of Power,
wish we'd
and I
got
actually
Reg
went
Prentice.
down during the power cuts, and I actually I produced a pamphlet called 10 Things to Do in a
Nicholas,
Power
look,
Cut.
look, if you allow this reincarnation lark, every subject
No,
you'll
don't
get.
worry, don't worry. I mean, you are talking as Giles Brandreth in just a minute. You cannot be a reincarnation.
Have you been tuned into this programme for the last 43 years?
Giles, you were a member of Parliament as Giles Brandreth.
Yes, but
You
before I
couldn't-
was born as Giles Brandreth, I was born, I'll be candid, I was born in 1948. I'm a direct result of the 1947 fuel crisis.
What, your mother ran it off with a Coleman? How long's this power cut lasting for?
Prior to that, I've been reincarnated many times over hundreds of years.
Well, that's
It is-
repetition.
I also think it's deviation. So, Paul, you get a bonus point for your
I'm so
last
sorry.
remark.
It's a
which you get-
tenet of many Buddhists believe in reincarnation.
But they don't do this program in Tibet.
All over the world, I thought. To our listeners in this country and around the world. I'm so sorry.
All right, a bonus point to Giles for that. Tony had a correct challenge.
Thank you.
He takes over the subject. 8 seconds to go. 10 things to do during a power cut.
We had 2, how many have we had? So 2, is it?
We've had 3.
Meditate and light a fire. Okay, next one.
No, there was a third one. Play the piano or guitar.
Oh, yeah, this is good.
And you have 8 seconds, Tony, starting now.
Perhaps if you have a goldfish, you could go fishing. Now, this is quite simple. You put the rod into the water, and goldfish...
Going fishing if you're a goldfish. Oh, gosh. What a world you live in.
It's a crazy world.
Tony Hawks, you're doing very well. You've gained lots of points. You're way out in the lead. Head of Gyles, Brandreth and Paul Merton in that order, and then Fee Glover. And Gyles, we're with you now to begin. And the subject is the advantages of a greater vocabulary. Obviously chosen for you. 60 seconds as usual. Starting now.
Vocabulary is power. Vocabulary is what defines us, differentiates us from the animals and those whose hands do trail upon the ground. As the philosopher said, no matter how eloquently a dog may bark, he cannot tell you that his parents were poor but honest. Vocabulary and language does that. William Shakespeare had the greater vocabulary of most playwrights, with 30,000 different words in all his 37 different plays. And if you think of James Joyce...
Tony challenge.
Repetition of 30.
No,
Yes.
if football, casting back a month or two, is one word, 37 and 30 are two different words.
Football, he was referring to a programme he did some while ago. When, of course, we had the same 4 people, but a different audience.
You may have heard it on the radio.
And I think 37, I think those are hyphenated. 37.
Yeah.
There are 34 seconds, Giles. You have the benefit of the doubt and the advantages of a greater vocabulary starting now.
When I was Dr. Johnson's cleaning lady, I have to tell you, I picked up an extraordinary vocabulary from the Panjandrum as he was known. He would slip words into the lingo that I had not previously heard, and yet when they came to my
Tony
ear...
challenge.
Repetition of words.
Word first time, word second time.
He's never wrong.
That's why Nicholas and I get on so well, because we have that in common. Can I say I will bow to Nicholas's judgment?
Well, I
you
must
said
say
words.
that earlier on when you were talking about a greater vocabulary, you did use the word words in the plural then. And now having got the subject back, you've used it again. So Tony actually has a correct challenge.
Well, of course, if that's what you say, Nicholas.
Of course. Well, that's my job.
How did you make your marriage last?
Always coming home with somebody else. Tonight I'm Napoleon.
So, Tony, 17 seconds.
Oh.
The advantages of a greater vocabulary starting now.
The advantages of a greater vocabulary are very important if you're in France in the supermarket and you want to buy something incredibly obscure and you cannot find the mot, as the French call it, for that thing. And
Paul challenge.
Repetition of French.
Yes.
French supermarket.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yes, well,
very
listen,
good.
Paul. And you've got him with 6 seconds to go on the advantages of a greater vocabulary starting now.
The advantages of a greater vocabulary. Oh, what's the word?
Tony, you challenge.
well, that was class. I didn't realise he was going to do that. Excellent joke. So I withdraw my challenge. There you go. Yeah, there you are.
That's very sweet of you. I'll take it up.
So, Tony, technically, yes, you are
Right,
correct,
okay,
aren't you?
yes,
Yeah.
I'll take it then.
4 seconds. The advantages of a greater vocabulary starting now.
Pompoverbosity is a word that I heard used sometime.
Paul challenge.
What's it mean?
It actually means using a word that's slightly more pompous than you need to use.
How
So
do you
it
spell
is
it?
actually the word itself sums up what it is.
Yeah.
So, what's your challenge with the rules of just a minute?
Oh, I got a bit lost. I wondered what it was.
So did I.
Yeah, I'm
Maybe
sorry. It was
explain
not.
what
It
it
was a
was.
bad. It was a wrong challenge.
Yeah. The whole thing's fallen apart, hasn't it,
Yeah.
really? So, an incorrect challenge.
Yes.
Half a second, Tony. The advantages of a greater vocabulary starting now.
Cilla Black once said to me...
So Tony Hawks will then speak as a whistle when gained an extra point has increased his lead. He's running away with it. He's way ahead of Gyles, Brandreth and Paul Merton, and then Fee Glover in that order. And Fee, we're with you to begin, and the subject is breaking the rules. Tell us something about that subject in this game, starting now.
I went to an all-girls school stuck up a hillside just outside Winchester, and we were all extremely well behaved until the hormones kicked in at about the age of 14. And that summer, as with every single hot term, we had to have our photograph taken. And I don't know whether you had this experience when you were at an educational establishment where you all had to stand on benches in an extremely long line. The photographer would walk about 1.5 miles in the opposite direction in order to get an aperture big enough and would capture all of you on magnetic film. Myself and my very best friend, Alicia Grundy, decided it would be a good idea to break the rules by painting our teeth black and, on account of 3, in a coded signalling manoeuvre, when the man who was standing a very long way down the field is way. But it's a great story. You want to know what happened?
When we get to the end of the round, tell us what happened. But
Yeah.
Paul, we know what your challenge was. Yes, way. So, Paul, the correct challenge, 8 seconds, breaking the rules, starting now.
I would like to say to everybody in the audience tonight that we should give a big cheer to Nicholas Parsons for his magnificent chairmanship of this programme. In fact, hip hip! Breaking the rules, hip hip.
Right. You're very generous, Paul. And we're moving into the final round. Oh, you're lovely, aren't you?
It may be the final round for some of us, but for those of us who've been reincarnated over the centuries, it's a mere blip in the endless sands of time.
Who will he be next?
Yes.
Right. Fee, what was the result of your black teeth in the photographs?
Oh, 1,200 absolutely bloody livid parents. Because the bloke didn't realise, the photographer didn't realise till he actually got the photographs developed that we'd completely and utterly ruined the whole picture for the whole school. And you couldn't get everybody back to have the picture taken again. And we were front page of the Telegraph.
So how
That
many
must have been a slow news day.
Not at all.
Front page of the Telegraph. Children blackout teeth in school photo. World War II, latest page 15.
Very much so.
Was it?
Yes, it was. It was.
How many of you had blacked out teeth?
Well, only 2 of us, but we also, we had these zip-up summer dresses, and we unzipped our summer dresses as well.
Oh.
That was the fun
So the
bit.
blacked out teeth were really neither here nor there, really.
Now we know why you're on the front page of the
Yes.
newspapers, right?
Yeah.
Well, it's lovely having you on the show. And
Did you go straight from that to Radio 4?
I did.
we're moving to the final round. Let me give the situation as we do. Fee is, according to this, you scored.
No, I'm unzipped. I'm completely unzipped.
No diamond. Well, give her a couple of bonus points for a story about the black. In third place, it's Gyles. He's 1 point behind Paul Merton. And they're all a few points behind Tony Hawkes, who's in the lead. And Tony, it's actually your turn to begin. And you'll never guess this. The subject is 5 more things to do during a power. Right. Well, that's brought the show to a halt, hasn't it, really?
He can't
Tony.
have meditation, playing the guitar, or starting a fire.
Right.
Or the goldfish.
Or the goldfish, poor goldfish.
There we go. 60 seconds as usual, starting now.
What a wonderful opportunity for me to carry on telling you some super things to do during power cut. I see a spin-off from this, my own show, where I take people through the various opportunities that are available to them during this period. Now imagine, Paul touched on this a little bit earlier, that this power cut has actually taken place at midday on June the 12th. We don't need to worry about darkness or anything.
Paul challenge.
We haven't had anything. There's 5 things to do in a power cut, and we haven't had one yet.
Yeah, fair enough. If
Maybe
I
we're
took
Just
it-
about to start the subject. I
Fair
understand.
enough,
You've
fair
been going
enough.
to 27 seconds already.
I know.
How many seconds?
27.
27 seconds
Yeah,
already.
yeah.
Shocking.
So there are...
27, yes.
You know, old Frankie Howard then.
Yeah.
Yes, lovely, yeah. Shall we do the round as old Frankie Howard?
It's chilly in here, isn't it?
Yeah. Mrs. Oh, I don't know, yeah.
Oh, should we all do Frankie Howard?
Yeah.
Could you do Frankie Howard coughing for us, Nicholas?
Hang on a minute, that's one of my 5 things to do in a power cut.
Paul, you had a correct challenge.
Yes.
33 seconds. Tell us something more about 5 more things to do during a power cut, starting now.
Evoke the spirit of the Blitz. Fail to light a fire. Invite the devil into your heart. Jump up and down to keep warm. Run on the spot. Decide to form a new church. Buy your next door.
Tony challenge.
That's 6.
Well, he didn't do any. He did 27 seconds and he's pilling me up for doing 6 in 20. What sort of game's this? Go on, have a cough, have a cough.
No, I'm coughed enough now.
You coughed enough?
Well, for the moment, yes.
Oh, yeah.
You've been so much on this, Tony, and you're in such a lead. I mean, shall we just let Fee have it?
Yeah, Fee, have a go.
Yes. Give us maybe about 5 more things to do during a power cut.
How long have I got?
19 seconds.
19
darling.
seconds.
So it's about 3 seconds on each one.
OK.
Starting now.
Well, the thing that everybody has missed so far is the most obvious one. It's one of those questions which you get in the back of a women's magazine all the time, stuff that you would do in a power cut. And the insinuation is that 9 months later, one of many Gyles Brandreth will emerge.
Gyles Chance.
Won 3 times.
Won 3 times,
3
yes.
ones.
But, darling, during that time, you never gave us one, that thing, actually.
Well, I was hinting at sex, but I didn't want to be so
Yes, but
bold
we've
as
got to do
just
the
say
game
it.
first. And if you're looking at Nicholas, he needs 6 weeks' notice.
I was just about to give you a bonus point.
I was being kind, I might have said 3 months.
You've lost your bonus point now. 5 seconds, Gyles, on 5 more things to do during a power cut, starting now.
Guy Fawkes and I had a whale of a time counting up those 5 things to do in the year 1600 and...
So that final whistle went when Gyles was speaking, so he got an extra point for doing so. Let me give you the final score. Fee Glover, who hasn't played the game very often before, did it very well, but finished in a magnificent 4th place. Well, it was the best 4th place we've had for ages. Yeah. And she was a few points behind Gyles Brandreth and Paul Merton, who were equal in... So you weren't actually in 4th place, you were in 3rd place. Yes. Because Gyles Brandreth and Paul Merton were equal in 2nd place. But there were quite a number of points behind Tony Hawkes, who excelled himself on this particular show and finished up in the lead. So we say, Tony, you are our winner this week. So then it remains me to say thank you to these 4 intrepid and inventive players of this game for the humour they have supplied. Paul Merton, Fee Glover, Gyles Brandreth and Tony Hawkes. I thank Trudy Stevens, who's helped me with the score, blown her whistle with such aplomb. We're grateful to our producer, to Lucia Galani, and we're very indebted to Ian Messiter, who created this amazing game. We're also indebted to this lovely audience who've come off the street tonight to enjoy themselves, and we hope they've had value for money. And they didn't pay for their seats, but they've had... Absolutely. So from our audience, from me, Nicholas Parsons, thank you for tuning in. Be with us at the same time next week when we play Just a Minute!
And next week's inventive and humorous players at the same time will be Paul Merton, Richard Herring, Josie Lawrence and Sheila Hancock.
Welcome to Just a Minute! Hello. My name is Nicholas Parsons. And as the minute waltz fades away once more, it's my huge pleasure to welcome our many listeners, not only in this country, but around the world, but also to welcome to the programme 4 talented, exciting performers who are going to play Just a Minute. And they are, seated on my right, Paul Merton and Sheila Hancock, and seated on my left, Josie Lawrence and Richard Herring. Please welcome all 4 of them. And as usual, I'm going to ask them to speak on the subject that I will give them, and they will try and do that without hesitation, repetition, or deviation. Beside me sits Trudy Stevens. She'll help me keep the score. She'll blow the whistle when the 60 seconds have elapsed. So, Josie, we're going to ask you to begin the show this time, and the subject is April showers. So, Josie, April showers, 60 seconds, starting now.
February frosts and the March winds. My favourite time of the year is April because of those delightful light showers that you get. When April showers come your way, they bring the flowers that bloom in May. But that song also goes on to tell you that the rain is actually violets and the clouds daffodils, which would be a ditty confusing to those who take life literally. Now, April showers are some... Oh, I'm gone now. I don't know what else to say about April showers. I mean, they're boring, aren't
challenge.
they, April showers?
Hesitation.
Yes, it was a hesitation.
I
Yeah.
don't like them, really.
Paul, there are 29 seconds still available. You take up the subject, get a point, of course, for a correct challenge. And you have April showers starting now.
Geoffrey Chaucer, of course, talked about April showers in the first of the Canterbury Tales. It was a book written in the 14th century, but even then the weather is very similar to what we have today. If we think of the month between March and the one afterwards, then we'd suddenly realise that actually April showers, isn't it something about that we say to each other, I love...
Sheila challenge.
Did you say something about twice then?
I'm not listening. It's bad enough coming out with it, won't listen to it. I've no idea, did I?
Well, who were you impersonating? Alec Guinness?
I like the voice.
I don't know who that was. I don't know who it was. No idea.
Well, it was
I thought,
me.
where's Paul?
Yeah.
Sheila, benefit of the doubt. 10 seconds available. April showers starting now.
I don't know why in this country we still continue to think that we have seasons of weather. We have April showers in autumn. We have freezing cold.
Oh, yes,
We
Richard
have.
challenge.
There was a few we haves.
Yeah,
We
there
have,
was.
yes. And you've cleverly got in with half a second to go, Richard.
I am very clever, thank you. It does rouse the envy of the audience,
I always
how
have to
clever I
say
am.
Because sometimes the audience think, he must have known. We don't have a clock here that they can see. There's only one watch
I have
beside
a
me.
clock in my head that is so precise I knew exactly what I was doing.
You do talk utter rubbish on
Thank you, I
occasion, don't you? So, Richard, half a second. April showers starting now.
I love to watch as April showers.
In this game, whoever is speaking as the whistle goes gains an extra point. It was Richard Herring, and he's now got 2 points. Sheila's got 1, Paul's got 1, Josie's yet to score. And Sheila, we'd like you to begin the next round, and the subject is ambience. Tell us something about that subject in this game, starting now.
Ambience, as I call it, is very important in my life. It is the feeling that you get in a room, which is sometimes to do with the smell, the sound. Actually, nowadays, the ambience of nearly everything is exactly the same because we have appalling music streaming out of loudspeakers.
Paul challenge.
Hesitation.
I think there was, yes, Paul. There are 35 seconds. You've got another point, of course, for a correct challenge. Ambience with you starting now.
Well, they work very hard. I mean, they have to look after ill people and take them to the hospital, and then... That is always a nice atmosphere when they do it.
Josie, you challenge. What was your challenge?
Oh, deviation. He was talking about ambulances.
I know it was, but the audience enjoyed it.
Yes, I know. I let them enjoy it for a while.
I know, but it was a correct challenge, Josie. So you have a point, and you have 31 seconds if you want it. Ambience starting now.
I like to get the ambience just right, especially when I want to create...
Sheila
Oh, no,
challenge.
did you say want twice?
Yes.
I want to when I want to.
I want to. I like to, yes, want to. So, well, listen, Sheila. You've got in on 26 seconds on ambience, starting now.
The ambience in this room is particularly good because the audience are lovely and you can feel their souls reaching out and making us all feel happy and pleasant and...
Richard
No,
Challenge.
you can't. You can't. That's just it's just a lie. It's just not true.
What is untrue?
The audience's souls are rising out. They're not giving us anything.
You can't possibly give the point to him. Not possibly. You'll be lynched if you do.
I wouldn't dream of it, Sheila. Incorrect challenge. They were laughing because he was being funny. But he wasn't being correct within the rules of just a minute. So you have another point. You have 14 seconds on ambience starting now.
Also, probably what contributes to it is the fact that on this stage have been some of the greatest comics of our generation, leaving jokes in the walls, the ceiling, the floor.
Richard Challenge.
It's just none of this is true. It's just it's just.
I left a joke in that wall over there in 1987.
I am prepared to pull these walls apart if I find a joke in there. I'm going to keep it.
Metaphorically speaking, they have absorbed the jokes, but you wouldn't find them actually there. Okay. So I give the benefit of the doubt on this occasion to Richard Herring and say, oh, you've got him with 2 seconds to go, Richard.
I'm losing my touch. I thought it was a second. I thought it was a second. That's a long time to talk.
Audience, those are the rules of the game.
It's like doing the show with Clement Freud. That's what he used to do. Do you remember? He used to do it all in the last minute.
No.
Savage.
That was only because he watched whoever had the whistle, waited till she took the whistle to put it up to his mouth. And that's
then
when whoops, you get in there. Nobody else could be like Clement Freud anyway. He was a one-off. He was amazing.
He was a
and he was very
one-off.
good in the show. Richard, you've got him with 2 seconds to go on Ambience, starting now.
I hate people who think they can create ambience with scented candles.
Right. So at the end of that round, Richard Herring was speaking as the whistle went, gained an extra point. And Richard, we'd like you to begin the next round. And the subject is unanswerable questions. A rather tricky subject to talk on. But you have 60 seconds to try, starting now.
As a child, I loved to ask my parents unanswerable questions. How many weeks would you have to attend Roman Catholic Holy Communion before you had eaten an entire Jesus? They didn't have an answer for that one. Questions like, if a serial killer kills another similar mass murderer, does that work like conkers? Nobody knows the answer to that. Is the glass half full or is it 50% empty? I go for the latter of those choices. People say that makes me a pessimist, but it sort of depends what's in that drinking vessel in the first place. What if it's a cup of poison? I'm quite an optimistic person. What if it's good job, because I was going somewhere quite rude next.
Yeah, they really enjoyed that, Richard. Well done.
Thank
well
you.
done. But, Paul, you challenged.
A hesitation.
There was a definite hesitation. So 25 seconds are available still, Paul. Unanswerable questions starting now.
As he climbed further and upwards the mountain, he realised the holy man sitting at the peak was the fount of all wisdom, with his long, white, straggly beard reaching down to his knees, and the white cloak. He had about him an air of a man that wouldn't waste time with many words. So I looked him straight in the eyes and I said, "What, above all else, is the secret of life?" He says, "Always play to the whistle. That's the secret of life."
Well done, Paul. You kept going till the whistle went. And you're in the lead at the end of that round, Paul. And Paul, we'd like you to begin the next round. A sporting bet. Will you tell us something about a sporting bet starting now?
In 1787, Sir William de Berkeley bet Nicholas Parsons that he could circumnavigate the Earth's globe on a giant fish cake. The wager was taken up, and the gentleman got as far as the Bay of Biscay when seagulls ate his unfortunate craft. He was washed up to Baffin Island, where he lived for several years until able to make a crystal radio network. He was able to hit... Oh, no, don't... Going too fast. Slow down.
No, we do love the fantasy world in which you take us, Paul. But Sheila, you challenged first.
A hesitation.
Yes, you
It
stopped
was
them.
lovely, though.
We call that hesitation. So, Sheila, you've got in with 40 seconds to go on a sporting bet starting now.
Well, being a Quaker, I'm not allowed to make bets, but I did once...
Sorry.
Josie challenged.
She sort of said Blake Blitz.
I know we knew what she meant, though, darling.
Yes.
So,
I was just pointing it out.
Sheila, an incorrect challenge. You've got 36 seconds. A sporting bet starting now.
I did once go to the Cheltenham racecourse for a charity do, and I didn't actually put money on, but I said that horse will win, and then I followed by choosing another. I promise you, not one of the said animals that I said would win...
Josie, you challenge.
Twice win.
Try win.
Yes,
Yes, you
repetition.
repeated that. 18 seconds, Sir Josie, with you. A sporting bet starting now.
She would jump into cold rivers. She would go... you bloody go-but-didder.
Paul.
A repetition of She Would.
I know.
She
I
would,
know.
She would, yes, right. 13 seconds, Paul. A sporting bet starting now.
Would I be able to beat what remains of Blackpool's football team from 1953 in a game of soccer? I said, well, how many are there? They said there's approximately 12 left. I said I thought there was only 11.
Josie challenge.
Repetition of I said.
That's right, you did, I said.
Yes.
Yes, right. So, Josie, you got in with 2 seconds to go on the sporting bet starting now.
Yes, her name was Sporting...
So Josie Lawrence, speaking as the whistle when, gained that extra point. And she's moved forward. She's equal in second place with Richard Herring. They're both 1 point behind Paul Merton and Sheila Hancock, who are in the lead. And Josie, we'd like you to begin the next round. The very first telephone.
Oh.
I don't know much about it, but you can talk on the subject starting now.
I always imagined that the very first telephone would be an extremely lonely piece of machinery. No one to dial or ring it. No...
Sheila Hancock.
Well, it was about to be a repetition, but I'm not sure it was.
Oh, no.
You could
but-
have changed it.
But there was a hesitation instead.
Yeah.
So 48 seconds with you, Sheila, on the very first telephone starting now.
Our very first telephone in the house that I lived in Bexley Heath in Kent, was in the hall. There were an awful lot of inns there, but everybody's being very generous to me. There was...
Paul Challenge.
Thank you for pointing it out. Repetition of in.
I'm scrupulously honest.
I know. So, Paul, I must give it to you because it was correct. 35 seconds, the very first telephone starting now.
The very first telephone was invented by Alexander Graham Bell, and he asked his assistant Watson to come and see him. He picked up the phone and said, "Your name, bloke," I mentioned him now. You. I can't say you again. Doesn't matter, in 120 years' time.
Oi. You've been challenged.
Oi, I've been challenged.
Yes.
He's interrupting. This is a party line. What's going on? First telephone, how can that be interrupted?
Josie, what was your challenge?
Hesitation, because he said, Watson, whatever your name
Yeah,
is.
that's right, yes. We interpret that as hesitation.
Yeah.
Another point to you, Josie. 25 seconds, the very first telephone starting now.
It was indeed Alexander Graham Bell who invented the first electrical telephone. You can get 2 tin cans and a hard bit of rope taut and make yourself heard that way, but...
Paul
No,
Challenge.
you can't. No, you need a bit of string, but a bit of rope. It's not telephone, is it?
I was speaking as a very tiny person to whom a length of string would look like rope.
I don't know what you're
you
talking
were.
about, darling.
No.
Of course she was, Nick. That's obvious that she was talking about a tiny person.
Rope. That's the only word we need to focus on.
Give him the point. I'm going to call my agent. I'm so glad they were blooming invented so I could do that.
All right, darling, I'll give him the benefit of the doubt because I think he deserves it.
Yes.
If I can redress the balance later, I will do so and give you a benefit
Thank
of
you,
doubt.
darling.
And, Paul, you have 11 seconds on the very first telephone starting now.
Get me as much rope as you can, he shouted out of his window. I need to have these conversations.
Sheila Challenge.
You couldn't make a telephone out of rope. It would have to be string, unless you were
Absolutely,
a
I
very
agree.
tiny person
I thought
and
we
it
just-
looked like rope.
Did I not say I was a very tiny person?
I agree with you, Sheila. You can't make a telephone out of rope.
No.
It doesn't
I don't
work.
know where I got the idea from.
From Josie Lawrence, I imagine. So, Sheila, 6 seconds. Another point to you. The very first telephone starting now.
When I was young, it was quite unusual.
Paul Challenge.
Deviation. She's not mentioned rope. How can you make a telephone without rope?
I haven't got to it yet.
She hasn't got to it yet. I'll withdraw my challenge.
You can't. You've done it. And she was interrupted. So she gets another point. The very first telephone, Sheila. 4 seconds starting now.
It was a huge occasion when you had the phone laid on and you...
So Sheila Hancock was then speaking as the whistle when gained that extra point. And she's taken the lead just ahead of Paul Merton, Josie Lawrence and Richard Herring in that order.
Oh, isn't it the end of the show yet? Because I would win if we finished now, and I won't, I know.
Well, darling, you're
I'll
going to begin the
lag.
next round. You've got a very good chance. And it's a good subject, too. The best ingredients for breakfast in bed. 60 seconds as usual, starting now.
Actually, breakfast in bed is one of those things you think will be marvellous, and it is, in actual fact, awful. You get breadcrumbs, so you shouldn't use bread because you left with it in your bed. And also, my husband always used to put a thing like this, which is another visual gag, a bottle with a flower in, and inevitably you knock it over and you get water all over your sheets. The best ingredient would be porridge, because then you would only have little globules of stuff rather than soaking through to the skin. However, I remember when I had my first baby and my then husband said said he was going to...
Richard
It's a
Challenge.
repetition of husband.
Oh, you mentioned
Have I?
your husband before,
Oh, right.
yes, and he brought the flower into you. Do you remember?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
It was a different husband.
I tell you what, that one's going in the wall. That one's going in the wall, that joke.
Now, show you how fair I am, Sheila. I'd like to
Yes.
give you a bonus point for your joke
Oh,
there.
wow.
Ah.
I'm getting...
But,
I thought
Richard-
it was only Josie that got bonus points.
Anybody gets them if they deserve them. And I love giving them to the women, but it's...
Oh, you're getting very frisky in your old age, Nick. It's that CBE.
I've been frisky all my age. But, Richard, you challenge, and I agree with the challenge. The best ingredients for breakfast in bed, and there are 17 seconds starting now.
I make my wife breakfast in bed every morning. She gets my special porridge. Really, it's Scottish oats and milk mixed together. The ingredients I put with it are blueberries, grapes, sunflower and pumpkin seeds, hazelnuts, walnuts and Brazil nuts. Then I take it...
Sheila
Hazelnuts
challenge.
is one word.
Did you say your wife gave you breakfast in
No.
bed?
No,
I thought you
he
did.
gave her breakfast in bed.
We're a modern couple. And it does get on the sheets and it creates... And then you can't get it off again. That's the problem.
no.
It really sticks to it.
Especially the blueberries. That's
Yeah,
a mistake.
It is.
You overindulge her if you really give her all that.
You wait. I'm going to tell you what happens next.
I don't think we'll have it on Radio 4, if you don't mind.
I've already said my special porridge. That's good enough for me.
And you've 2 seconds still, Richard, after an incorrect challenge of the best ingredients for breakfast in bed, starting now.
On top of all that, I put a heart made out of raspberries.
Oh, Sheila challenge.
That was a hesitation.
There was a hesitation,
Was.
that 2 seconds, yes.
It was, but it was getting to the romantic touch. I thought you'd
So,
forgive
Sheila,
me,
you
Sharon.
cleverly got in with half a second to go
Oh.
on the best ingredients for breakfast in bed, starting now.
Is to have...
Richard Herring, we'd like you to begin the next round. And the subject is growing tomatoes. And there's nothing funny about that. Well, he might make it funny. Anyway, 60 seconds as usual, Richard, starting now.
Growing tomatoes is something I achieve with fantastic results by allowing someone else to do the growing. I get them to put them in the shop and then I buy them.
Sheila challenge.
Yeah, that was hesitation.
Yeah, well, thanks
Yes,
for letting the first one go.
I don't know what to do with this subject. However.
Well, 53 seconds. Try, Sheila. Growing tomatoes, starting now.
Well, I have a pot on my patio in which the lady that helps me clean put a tomato plant. And I have to say, the results were delicious. It's like everything. It tastes so much better when it's straight from the earth, like spinach. However, the subject is growing tomatoes. So I suggest you put on some nice seaweed manure, which they like because it makes them grow juicy and pippy without many leaves. Am I talking about?
Juicy and Pippy. Juicy and Pippy.
Well, what is your challenge, Josie?
Hesitation.
I think so. After she said Pippi, she stopped, didn't she? Josie, 21 seconds available. Growing tomatoes, starting now.
When growing tomatoes, the best advice I could give is to not plant them all at once, because then you suddenly discover you've got loads of tomatoes all getting ripe at exactly the same time, and there's only just so much you can do with that particular fruit.
I disagree. There's a lot you can do with a tomato. I could give you some really good recipes.
Chutney.
Chutney? Yes, but I don't, you see.
Almost every French dish you could make with tomatoes, so it's not true.
But I'm from Dudley.
Oh, all right. Poor soul. Give her the point. There's only so much you can do with tomatoes. There's a lot of things you can do
There isn't
with
an
tomatoes.
infinite amount of things you can do with tomatoes, so there is only so much you can do with tomatoes. It might be a lot of things, but
Yes, you can't
it's not.
sail in one.
If you were a tiny person, you could.
Yes.
Pulled by rope.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think, metaphorically speaking, Josie, you were correct. So we give you the benefit of the doubt and tell you that you have 3 seconds on growing tomatoes, starting now.
What they love is water. Lots of
So Josie Lawrence is going to speak as a whistle when, gain that extra point. She's moved forward. She's now in second place behind Sheila Hancock. And she's just ahead of Paul Merton and Richard Herring in that order. And Paul, we're back with you to begin. And the subject is analysing a joke. Will you tell us something about that rather obscure subject in this game, starting now?
Well, I suppose I have to tell a joke first and then attempt to analyse it. There's this conjurer on board a ship, and there's this parrot watching him do these magic tricks. And every time the magician does a particular illusion, the tropical bird shouts out, "It's up his sleeve," or "It's behind his back." In the middle of the night, the cruise liner sinks. There are 2 survivors left. The illusionist plus the colourful macaw. And the 2 of them are sitting in a boat. And after 3 or 4 days, the first one says to the other one, "All right, I give up. What did you do with the ship?" Now, that is the joke. What we have to realise now is that when you tell that particular joke, you mustn't use the word disappear in the punchline earlier, because people will go, then perhaps this is some kind of reference to prestidigitation that we might have seen from the professional entertainer. No, indeed, it's not that. The bird of the forest is actually being quite clever because it's looking eye to eyebrow to the other person and it's saying, "I don't know what you did with it."
Right. So Paul Merton was then speaking as a whistle
Not
winner.
so well, that joke.
But actually, Paul, you weren't actually analysing it, were you? You were just telling it.
No, I wasn't at all.
I know.
Just trying to get through it without
I know.
repetition.
Paul Merton, you went with a subject, started with it and finished with it, and you got a point for speaking when the whistle went and a point for not being interrupted. And at the end of that round, you're still in second place with Josie Lawrence, just behind Sheila Hancock, and you're all ahead of Richard Herring. And Josie, it's your turn to begin. And we're into the final round, by the way. It's connecting the dots. Tell us something about that strange subject in this game, starting now.
Mary looked at her watch. It was 10 to 2. The church bells rang twice. The vicar left the vestry, dropping the parcel on the path. Megan from the pub picked up this said package and gave it to Arnold. Arnold took the key.
And Richard, that was your challenge, was
Yes,
it?
it was a repetition of Arnold. Also,
Yes.
I don't know where we were going.
So, Richard, you had a correct challenge. You have the point. You have 41 seconds. Connecting the dots, starting now.
I once tied together Dorothy Parker and some other Dorothys with a rope. I was connecting the dots. It was a good time. I had fun. But another time...
Paul, challenge.
Well, you shouldn't have tied him up with a rope. That way they could have made a phone call. You should have tied them up with something much more substantial.
It's true.
That's where you went wrong.
Yeah.
So what was the challenge within the rules of just a minute?
Repetition of dots.
Dots is on the card.
Oh, is it? Then it's not me.
Benefit of the doubt to you, Richard.
Benefit of the doubt.
32 seconds available. Connecting the dots, starting now.
Dot Cotton was there as well, as it happens. But I used to do dot-to-dot puzzles as a little child where you had to connect dots.
Sheila, challenge.
You repeated dot,
Yes.
dot to dot, and on the card is dots.
Yes, on the card. Oh. There's someone who's played the game a few times.
Train?
It's true.
So, Sheila, correct challenge. 26 seconds. You tell us
Well
something.
done. I didn't have anything else anyway.
Ludicrous subject. What on earth you can
I
say
don't
about
know whoever thought of
collecting
this
a dot?
subject. Connecting the dots, starting now.
In the Museum of Modern Art in Paris, there's a room of dots, which is supposedly a work of the same thing as in the title. I have a terrible temptation, same when I see a Damien Hirst, which is all dots, to take a pencil and join them up all the way round the said...
Richard,
There
challenge.
was kind of hesitation going on.
Yes.
No, I don't know what to try and
Well, I don't
say.
know why I've taken it back. I mean, I can't win the game. I could have just sat quietly and waited
Yes,
till the end of the game.
Because you've got him with 2 seconds to go.
Oh, that's all right.
2 seconds on connecting the dots with you, Richard, starting now.
Connecting the dots is a very good...
Clearly didn't make it. So let me give you the final score. Oh, very interesting situation. Josie Lawrence, Richard Herring, and Paul Merton were all equal in second place. And they were... Oh, you're a lovely audience. I mean, it wasn't worth that. But you might like to know that a few points ahead of them all was Sheila Hancock. So we say, Sheila, you are our winner this week. So it only remains me to say thank you to these four fine players of the game, Paul Merton, Sheila Hancock, Josie Lawrence and Richard Herring. I thank Trudy Stevens, who's kept the score for me magnificently, blown her whistle with such style. We're grateful to our producer, to Lucia Galani. We're indebted to Ian Messiter, who created this amazing game. And we're grateful to this lovely audience here who've cheered us on our way with real style and panache. From the audience, from me, Nicholas Parsons, and the team, goodbye. Tune in again, the same time, when we play Just a Minute.
And Just a Minute will be back at the same time next week when the contestants battling to burble without blundering will be Paul Merton, Alun Cochrane, Rebecca Front and Russell Kane.
Welcome to Just a Minute. Nicholas Parsons. And as the minute waltz fades away, once more it's my huge pleasure to welcome our many listeners, not only in this country, but around the world, but to welcome to the programme four dynamic, great, humorous individuals who are going to show their skill with words and language as they try and speak on the subject that I give them, and they try and do that without hesitation, repetition or deviation. And they are seated on my right, Paul Merton and Alun Cochrane, and seated on my left, Russell Kane and Rebecca Front. Will you please welcome all four of them? Beside me sits Trudy Stevens, who's going to help me keep the score, and she will blow the whistle when the 60 seconds have elapsed. And we begin the show with Alun Cochrane. Who better? Alun, the subject here is a habitual lie. What an awful subject to begin with. Can you tell us something about that subject in this game, starting now?
What a wonderful subject to begin with. Not really. I'm a liar. I enjoy a habitual lie.
All challenge.
Hesitation.
Yeah, you did. You hesitated.
I did.
He said he was a liar, and then he realised he wasn't. All right. Paul, a correct challenge, so you're in straight away, and there are 55 seconds still available. A habitual lie, starting now.
There was a popular American comedian called Jack Benny, who people may remember from the 1950s, 40s, 30s, and his habitual lie was he always pretended to be 39. This was the age that he stated. Even when he was in his 70s and 80s, he still maintained that his birth date...
Alun, you've got it back again. A habitual lie is with you, Alun, and there are 38 seconds still available, starting now.
I've lived most of my life as a nun. That's not true. It's a habitual lie. Do you see what I've done there? It's one of those little lies that I tell to make myself seem superior. Very clever. Anyway, we move on. A habitual lie is often one that doesn't really matter, especially people ask you a question and you nod. Have you seen a film? And before you know it, you're agreeing, yes, I have seen that particular movie. And then it dawns on me, personally, that I have never watched Fellini's 8½, but now I'm locked into a conversation where apparently I have. And then I have to say, I'm sorry, not for a while, as if I have...
Cochrane, you were speaking as the whistle went, and so you get an extra point for that. And you have taken the lead. In fact, you're the only one who's... No, Paul's got a point. You've got 2 points. And we move on to the next round. Oh, Rebecca Front, would you like to take the next round? Oh, Rebecca, my celebrity crush. Can you tell us something about that subject in this game, starting now?
A celebrity crush might be mistakenly thought to be a kind of soft drink, rather like celebrity juice, in which you take Keith Lemon and you put him into a blender, and it's very, very popular. But in fact, what I think most people mean by a celebrity crush is a crush that you have on a very famous person. Now, of course, I'm holding Nicholas Parsons at bay here because I will be coming back to him shortly. But I suppose my celebrity crush would be George Clooney, probably.
Oh, yes.
And I actually think I may have a shot at getting together with George Clooney ever since... I can't stop talking about him.
Right.
You see, that's how obsessed I am.
So, Russell, you challenge.
As repetition of George Clooney.
George Clooney,
Not that you
yes.
can have
Just
too
say
much
it
of him.
again. Say it again for me.
So, Russell, we're going to hear from most people on this subject. So, you have got in with 30 seconds to go on My Celebrity Crush, starting now.
My celebrity crush is a bit unimaginative. It's Natalie Portman, the gorgeous Hollywood actress, brunette, my type, very talented, wonderful actor she is too. And the reason I love her so much is not just because she is so wonderful looking.
Alan challenge.
I think there's a repetition of wonderful.
There was, we talked about wonderful before. So, Alan, you got back in with 13 seconds to go on My Celebrity Crush, starting now.
Bobby Crush is my celebrity crush. A wonderful pianist, and I do like the way he looks at me.
Oh, your challenge.
Grinding to a halt there, weren't we? Hesitation.
It was, yes, I think of the grind of the halt because of the content of what he was talking about. Right, there we are. Paul, a correct challenge. 6 seconds are still available. My Celebrity Crush, starting now.
Helen Mirren in a lift, moving towards each other, crushing the breath from each other's bodies as we realise...
So Paul Merton was speaking as a whistle when gained that extra point. He's now equal with Alan Cochrane in the lead. Russell, Kane has got one. Rebecca's yet to score. Russell, it's your turn to begin. Oh, the metaphysical poets. That's a challenge for you all, isn't
My
it?
celebrity crush.
So you're all right. The metaphysical poets, 60 seconds if you can, starting now.
My hair has more volume than a pensioner's telly. Nicholas's locks are wavier than a toddler at a gate. 2 examples of simile there, where I've joined something concrete with other thing.
Alan, you
I was
challenge.
off.
I think that was hesitation.
Yeah.
Right. So you got
Thank
a
God for
point.
that.
You've got the subject.
What a shame.
48 seconds. Tell us something about the metaphysical poets, starting now.
The metaphysical poets are a keen area of interest of mine. I often spend my afternoons just reading up on them. They're so popular, aren't they? And metaphysical. There's not one of them that is actually physical. In my youth, I made a very big mistake.
Russell, you challenge first.
It was a hesitation.
Yes, I'm not surprised. It's a tough subject, isn't it?
Yes.
For 31 seconds are still available, Russell. The metaphysical poets, starting now.
It was all about joining the physical with the not real, the non-corporeal, if you like. And this is what the metaphysical poets set out to do. In fact, it was a derisive term attributed by John Dryden to Donne, saying he had metaphysical poetry. It was a way of mocking him that he spoke about things that weren't solid, that we could grasp and touch. But in fact, he was taking things...
Alan Challenge.
I think there's been a repetition of in fact.
Yeah.
Yes, in fact,
Yeah.
you did.
Very
say
interesting, though.
It was awfully good.
that. We all know. So, Alan, I'd like to give you one for content, but those aren't within the rules of just a minute.
There's not much to do on the estate except read.
Alan, 10 seconds are still available on the metaphysical poets, starting now.
There's a wonderful pub at the end of my road called the Metaphysical Poets. You walk in, you're immediately welcomed with a glass of beer that is like a simile in a...
So, Alan Cochrane was speaking as the whistle went. Again, that extra point. He's increased his lead ahead of Paul, Merton, Russell, Kane and Rebecca up front in that order. And Paul, it's your turn to begin. And the subject is a miniature village. 60 seconds starting now.
I find them quite enticing, miniature villages. They have a miniature high street with all the shops you would normally associate with such a place. Boots, W.H. Smiths, builders, chemists perhaps, a doctor's surgery, and then at the end a huge tower, a cathedral rendered in some scale, perhaps 1 in 20.
Rebecca Challenge.
I don't think you get a cathedral in a village. Does that count as a deviation?
Oh, yes, it does, yeah.
I think you're right. I don't think you'd have a cathedral in a miniature village. So, Rebecca, very good challenge.
I mean, to be honest, Paul's miniature village sounds massive. There's loads of stuff in it.
No, it's quite small.
42 seconds are available. Rebecca, you tell us something about a miniature village starting now.
There is a lovely scene in one of the books about the borrowers who are little people, and they go to live in a miniature village because they've been kicked out of their homes and are very disappointed to discover that all the houses, which are so beautiful and small, are not in fact. Help me! I knew what I was aiming for, it just wouldn't come out of my mouth.
But Russell, you challenged first, and what was it?
I detected just a smidgen of hesitation there.
Could you sense panic as well?
And 26 seconds are available, Russell, on a miniature village starting now.
London property prices are such that even if a miniature village were laid down in Shoreditch, it would still be worth a considerable amount of money. In fact, Ollie, Jemima, Jacob and Hugh would have nowhere to store their hummus, but it wouldn't stop them moving in and going, I know it's only the size of my toe, but it's still costing me 8.5k a year. The miniature village in Shoreditch will also... Sorry.
What's your challenge, Alan?
There was a repetition, but I've now forgotten the word. Hang on. Shoreditch. That's what it was, yes.
I didn't want to prompt you, but it was. He repeated Shoreditch.
I was possessed.
Alan, you've got in with 6 seconds to go on a miniature village starting now.
On many of the first dates that I have taken in my life, I've insisted that I go to a miniature village with...
So Alan Cochrane has another point for speaking as the whistle went. And Alan, it's also your turn to begin. The subject, now strange subjects this week, a benign dictatorship. Can you tell us something about a benign dictatorship, starting now?
A Benign Dictatorship is the title of one of my many unpublished novels, along with The Metaphysical Poets and A Celebrity Crush.
Paul, you challenge.
Hesitation.
Yes, indeed. Right, Paul. Tell
I've
us
written
something.
so many, it's hard to remember them sometimes.
Yes.
A benign dictatorship, Paul. And there are 51 seconds still available, starting now.
Perhaps we could look upon Nicholas Parsons' chairmanship of Just a Minute as being a benign dictatorship, because after all, he is the one... What do you mean, oh? It's benign, isn't it? He's the one that sets the rules and judges how people do, and we listen and adore his rulings because they always come with the wisdom of Solomon. His magnificent track record of hosting this programme over the years has lent him an air of gravitas which is beyond most human beings. They should rename the British Broadcasting Corporation Nicholas Parsons Channel.
Russell, you challenge.
It's a ludicrous idea.
I should give you a bonus point for that.
You should, but I don't
Yes.
want one.
But Russell, why did you challenge?
Well, I thought it was only fair to let the wonderful speech finish, but there was a repetition of Nicholas Parsons.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Oh, yeah. We've done it too
Absolutely.
much, can you?
No, you can't. Unless you're in the rules of Just a Minute.
Right. So, yes, we had too much of Nicholas Parsons.
Oh, he's questioning your dictatorship over there.
Please do not slay me, master.
19 seconds available for you, Russell, on a benign dictatorship starting now.
A benign dictatorship is somewhat of an oxymoron, as someone that's telling you what to do can't really be that benign, surely. However, it is a form of dictatorship where the person who is giving you these orders is thought to be doing it in your interest, or is a nice person on the inside. I tell you what, stand-up comedy is a bit...
So, Russell Kane was speaking as the whistle went, gained that extra point. He's moved forward. He's in second place now. Alan Cochrane's still in the lead. Paul's one behind Russell. And Rebecca, it's your turn to begin. Oh, childish behaviour, Rebecca. I mean, I don't think it was a personal that was chosen for you, but I'm sure you can talk on it because you know a lot about children. Starting now.
Many years ago, when my own children were very small, I took them in to work with me, and the previous week they had visited my husband's office where he was employed at the time, and they found it absolutely fascinating, playing on the computer and doing some filing. When they came with me, they were very, very bored, and the reason for that was because I am an actress, and basically my job is childish behaviour. And they couldn't understand how my work seemed to involve dressing up and putting on makeup, pretending, playing silly voices, that sort of thing. And they found the whole thing actually rather dull. Fortunately, I find it very, very fascinating. Lots of berries.
Quite a few very veries.
Yes, you did a very, very before and then let it go. But at that time, Paul, you couldn't. 25 seconds are available still for childish behaviour starting now.
Those days at school waiting for the playground bell to go so you could rush out onto that bit of land and start playing football or British bulldog or chasing each other around the acreage. It was exciting to get the air into your lungs, to shout and scream, and just for a moment imagine that you were king of the castle, or perhaps somebody else, the one who made the girls kiss and cry and run away. I wanted to be a hero. I needed to be somebody.
So Paul Merton was then speaking as the whistle went and gained that extra point. He's moved forward. He's in second place, a little way behind Alan Cochrane, 1 ahead of Russell Kane and 2 or 3 ahead of Rebecca Front. And Russell, it's your turn to begin. The subject now is bingo wings. Tell us something about that subject in this game, starting now.
In the working classes, we have a different way of being reared to the rest of the social structure. Where our mums, aunts, nans, great-aunts, great-grandmothers have bingo wings. And we're in fact born a few months premature, crawl round underneath the wing like a marsupial, and do the remainder of our gestation inside that bingo wing, where we learn fundamental skills such as sky control shortcuts, chip seasoning, and of course, bingo itself. The bingo wing evolution comes from holding your arm aloft in the game of bingo, and in fact, it's a positive thing. The longer the bingo wing, the more times the appendage has been thrust upwards to say, full house! So, if you're good at winning cash when you're out at Mecca on a Saturday night, you should probably spray out some sprogs and grow them under your armpits, because that's what bingo wings are for, folks. That's where I grew up. That's where my quiff...
One day. 52 seconds you went for.
One day.
So there's 8 seconds to go. Paul, what was your challenge?
There was 3 that's in a row.
Yeah, there were. And so you got in with 8 seconds to go. Bingo wings are starting now.
My mum used to enjoy playing bingo, go out on a Thursday with all the other ladies and sit down and listen to the numbers being shouted out. And it's quite true. During the hot weather, if they were wearing...
So Paul Merton was again speaking as the whistle when gained that extra point, and he has moved forward. He's now equal with Alan Cochrane in the lead. They are 3 points ahead of Russell Kane, a few more ahead of Rebecca Front. And is it front or front, darling? And
It's front.
It is front, but you spelled front.
Yes, but then the normal word front is spelt front as well.
You're quite right.
It's one of those vagaries of life.
I know.
It's the word like the word doing. When I first saw it, I thought it was doing. Why isn't doing pronounced doing?
No, I thought front is spelt that way, but I thought as a surname it returned it to front.
It is Polish, apparently. So there we are.
Is it?
You see, it could
Are
have
you
been.
Polish
It would have been
extraction, then?
front. Well, years back, but
Years back?
So it could have been front originally. So there you are. You see, it was very prescient of you.
Yes. Because all the Poles were stationed in Glasgow when I was there during the war, and that they all started speaking English with Scottish accents. I remember speaking to one once. He came up to me and said, please show me the way to Stockhill Street. And I put on my very precise English. I said, yes, you take the road down there, then you get on the green tram car. He said, no, please, you speak Scottish. I don't understand your talking. I wish I hadn't said that, because it wasn't really very funny, but...
It's contrast.
Contrast. Thank you, Paul. Paul, it's your turn to begin.
Oh, is it? Oh, dear.
And the subject is a snake charmer. 60 seconds as usual, starting now.
As the melodious flute music drifted through the courtyard, I caught the eyes of Al Kalim. He was my double agent. I was meeting him that evening. We crossed across the piazza. He looked at me and I glanced back towards. The snake charmer in the corner was listening carefully to what we were saying, although it might have seemed like simple platitudes to an unconvinced observer. Suddenly, the snake reared its ugly head. Its eyes fixated on mine. The two of us danced across the squares that were in our front of our faces. We heard the music of Rachmaninoff, but in our hearts we were like Van Gogh and Picasso, barely knew each other, but yet we had something in common. We were both drunk. It was at this point I realised that the heart that was beating in my chest had a romantic beat that was going on, and I realised I would never have a situation like this ever again in my life. I curled up in the gutter and I slept that night like I'd never had before. I dreamt of 1,000 people and none of them were me.
Oh, Paul, a real tour de force. Absolutely wonderful.
Takes that, yeah.
And you... You get a point for speaking as the whistle went, and a bonus point for not being interrupted and keeping going with that wonderful rubbish for 60 seconds. And no, you enter into that world of fantasy, which is absolutely adorable. And let me say, you've increased your lead. You're 2 ahead of Alan Cochrane and more of the other ones. Alan, it's your turn to begin. On the subject now, what a contrast, origami. Tell us something about origami in just a minute, starting now.
I, over the years, have studied many and various martial arts, ladies and gentlemen, including Muay Thai, Judo, Shotokan Karate, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and origami, which is a lethal art whereby the folding of paper can kill or maim or slice with a paper cut. It's very dangerous indeed, particularly now that there is a new 3D printer out where people are genuinely printing off guns. That's terrifying. Origami may be the most lethal form of slaughter.
A bit of hesitation.
Yeah, I think there was, yes.
I was terrified, frankly.
Right, Paul, correct challenge. 26 seconds on origami, starting now.
There used to be a man called Robert Harbin used to appear on the television in the 1970s demonstrating origami. It was something I tried at school and I was never very good at it. Folding up this piece of paper along this line, crease it here, bring that over there. I was no good at all. As I think I've probably said already, but it's...
Right, Rebecca, your challenge.
No good at all.
No good at all.
Yes.
Yes, well spotted, my darling. You've got him with 10 seconds to go on origami, starting now.
I think when you join the Origami Academy, you are welcomed into the fold. That's just about all I know about origami. Except to say that it is the rather tedious-looking art if you, like me, know nothing about it.
So Rebecca Front was speaking as the whistle went, gained an extra point, and she has leapt forward. She's still in 4th place, but she has leapt. But she's not very far behind Russell Kane, and he's a few behind Alan Cochrane, and he's 2 or 3 behind our leader, Paul Merton. And Rebecca, it's your turn to begin. Making a confession. Will you tell us something about that subject in this game, starting now?
Making a confession is something which is often associated with the religion of Catholicism, because in that faith, one is encouraged to go and report one's confessions to the priest on, I believe, a weekly basis. I'm not a Catholic, I'm a Jew, and what's perhaps less well known is that in my religion, I was going to say...
Alan, you challenge.
I think that was a hesitation.
Yes, it was, right.
I think
so. You tell us something about making a confession, Alan, and you have 41 seconds available, starting now.
I've got a secret to tell you all, ladies and gentlemen, and it's very embarrassing.
Paul, you challenge.
Hesitation.
It was so quiet, I don't know whether he did hesitate or not.
I did say it was a secret.
All right. It was. Do you admit it?
Yes.
Right, OK. 37 seconds, Paul, making a confession, starting now.
Unlike Rebecca, I was brought up as a Catholic and I did go to confession for a number of years. It was the usual thing, not necessarily weekly. If you went, you had to say, I have been to confession. It's been 6 weeks since my last, and you would say what you'd... No. It's become too traumatic to remember it.
Yeah. Alan, it's back with you.
There was a hesitation there, yes.
Making a confession is still the subject, and 24 seconds available, Alan, starting now.
I've never actually made a confession because my previous attempt, I whispered and got so distracted that I couldn't get it.
Russell, you challenge me.
Hesitation.
Yes.
Yeah.
Russell, you've got in with 18 seconds to go, making a confession, starting now.
This game is very much like making a confession. Nicholas Parsons, quite literally the parson, the religious figure to which I can make my confession. So let's start, shall we? OK, I'll begin in just a moment. I was once travelling upon a train towards York, and I decided the woman opposite me was so annoying that I would update something to my social...
Russell Kane again speaking to the whistle. When gain the extra point.
Yeah. Do you want to know?
They want to know what you did on the train, Russell.
I tweeted something uncomplimentary about this woman who was tutting every time I was moving. I went, oh, there's a real miserable cow opposite me, and she's got a librarian's haircut. But at the time, my Facebook was public, and she'd half recognised me and thought, oh, is that chap? Is that Russell? Googled me, my Facebook status had come up, and she leant in a loud voice and went, I don't have a librarian's haircut. Happened to be having a very bad day. Yeah, on a true story.
A true story, yes. Not very funny, but a true story.
was revealing. It was revealing about human nature.
It was a confession.
It was a
not
confession.
quip.
It was.
Yeah. You're a cruel parson.
I know. I've got a much more
Go on, let's hear
embarrassing
it.
story. Right.
This involves Stevenson's rocket.
Right, no. I was going to play in a charity golf match, and I passed a sportswear shop, and it said all golf balls reduced. And I'm partly Scottish, you know, so I couldn't resist a bargain. I bought 6 top fly to push 3 into one pocket and 3 into the other. I was one of those old-fashioned trains, a nice compartment, and I was reading the paper, and I caught the sight of the woman opposite. Her gaze was directed to the bulges in my 2 pockets. So I tapped my pockets like that, and I said, "Oh, golf balls." And she said, "Oh, how most unfortunate for you." She said, "Tell me, is it anything like tennis elbow?" So Rebecca and Russell are trailing a little. Paul is 2 ahead of Alan Cochrane as we move into the next round with Russell Kane, your turn to begin. And the subject is the back of my hand. 60 seconds starting now.
Who can forget the feeling of that terrifying phrase ringing through the house, "I'll show you the back of my hand." That's what my dad would say as he came towards me. But don't worry, it was nothing menacing. We were simply too poor for books. And he would simply put the back of his...
Rebecca challenge.
Repetition of simply.
Yes. Rebecca, you've got in with 46 seconds to go on the back of my hand, starting now.
There are 2 contrasting uses of the phrase, the back of my hand. One is, as Russell suggested, that it can suggest a threat, that you can hit somebody with the back of your hand. This seems to me very inefficient, because surely if you were to wallop that person with the front part of the hand, that would be a far more vicious thing to do. But anyway, who am I to say? Yeah, please rescue me.
There was hesitation, but as a student of many martial arts, I agree, hitting with the back of the hand is quite dangerous. It's not as powerful.
So what is your challenge with
hesitation?
I don't think she hesitated much, did she?
I think I did a little.
She was teetering on it. The audience is certainly with you on this one, Rebecca. So you carry on with another point. 25 seconds to go. The back of my hand starting now.
Thanks, it's made my day. Well, the other use of the phrase the back of my hand, of course, is that you know something like the back of your hand. You are very, very familiar with it.
Another touch of very, very, I'm afraid.
Yes.
Very, very.
It's a disease. It's awful. Very,
it's
very.
the way
very.
people talk. They do say very, very, you know.
I do it ever so much. Ever so much. I do it very,
you're
very,
about the only
very
person I know who says that. But no, it is so easy to do it if you're not a regular. That's why you have to listen to yourself all the time. Paul, repetition of very, 19 seconds available. The back of my hand starting now.
As Rebecca said, it's knowing something as well as you know the back of your hand, assuming that knowledge extends all the way from the tip of your fingers to the edge of your wrist. If I look at the back of my hand, what do I see? A number of veins leaping out, a wedding ring, which is appropriate because I am married, a watch which tells me that my 60 seconds is nearly up, but I realise this.
So Paul Merton was speaking as a whistle when gained that extra point. And let me give you the final situation. Russell Kane, who did so well when these 4 were together a few weeks back, he's training a little. Rebecca's alongside him. She's training a little as well. Alan Cochrane, who started with a huge flourish, he's in a strong second place. But 3 points ahead of him was Paul Merton. So we say once again, Paul, you are the winner this week. Right, so it only remains for me to say thank you to these 4 fine players of the game, Paul Merton, Alan Cochrane, Russell Kane and Rebecca Front. I thank Trudy Stevens, who's helped me with the score. She's blown her whistle with great style and aplomb when the 60 seconds have elapsed. We thank our producer, Talusha Gilani. We are indebted to Ian Messiter, who created this amazing game. And we're very grateful to this lovely audience here. So from our audience, from me, Nicholas Parsons, and the team here, thank you. Tune in again the next time we play Just a Minute!
Indeed, Nicholas Parsons will be back at 6:30 next Monday evening with Graham Norton, Holly Walsh, Miles Jupp and Paul Merton.
Welcome to Just a Minute. Thank you. Thank you. Hello. My name is Nicholas Parsons, and as the minute waltz fades away, once more it's my huge pleasure to welcome our many listeners, not only in this country, but around the world, and to welcome to the programme 4 exciting, talented performers who are seated on my right, Paul Merton and Holly Walsh, and seated on my left, Graham Norton and Miles Jupp. Please welcome all 4 of them. And as usual, I am going to ask them to speak on a subject that I will give them, and they will try and do that without hesitation, repetition, or deviation. Beside me sits Trudy Stevens, who's going to help me with the score. She'll blow a whistle when the 60 seconds have elapsed. And we have in front of us a quiet, very subdued at the moment. Oh no, they've woken up, thank goodness. Audience to cheer us on our way as we begin the show with Graham Norton. Graham, a shotgun wedding. An interesting subject. Tell us something about it in this game starting now.
I must confess, I don't know a lot about marriage, but apparently there are various anniversaries. Silver weddings, paper ones, there's diamond. But I'm fairly certain that a shotgun wedding is your last wedding anniversary. It's the one that people tend to go out on if your husband comes home with a gun.
Challenged. Holly, you've challenged.
You said anniversary twice.
Did I? Oh, I guess I don't talk anymore then.
I mean, I feel bad now. Can I take that back?
No,
you
don't.
Want to, Dan, because I didn't say it, actually.
No, I'm done.
Okay.
Go. Fly or free.
Did she say anniversary twice?
I'm not a woman.
You know, it's just kind of like who got her ready. It's
For listeners around the world, this is a man. It's an accent.
I was so carried away with your acting. For once, I switched my ears off, which was fatal in this game.
Fatal.
For me, in this position. So I think it was an incorrect challenge.
Okay,
Holly.
I'm fine. I'm good about that.
He has 44 seconds. He got a point for an incorrect challenge. And to continue on a shotgun wedding, Graham, starting now.
A shotgun wedding can also occur when an irate father comes to the house with a shotgun. Now, it's a very indelicate situation to try to describe to a lovely Radio 4 audience. But put it this way, a lot happened before the shotgun wedding to make the shotgun wedding occur. I believe you would go down the aisle rather than being shot in the head, unless you'd made a terrible error of judgment with the person that you'd liaised with, causing the situation of said, oh, their baby. Now it's out. You know what I'm talking about. Before the thing. I'm just saying words.
All you challenge.
Slight hesitation.
I'm exhausted.
Well, he said, I'm just saying words.
Well, he's only got 1 second to go. So I'm tempted to give him the benefit of the doubt.
Don't.
Which the audience had endorsed, so you get a point. I don't know what you were talking about. It was absolute rubbish, but you kept going magnificently till 1 second. Shotgun wedding starting now.
She's pregnant. There, that's what it is.
In this game, whoever is speaking when the whistle goes gains an extra point. It was Graham Norton, and so naturally he's in the lead at the end of that round because he is actually the only one to have spoken. No, Holly spoke, but to no effect. Right. Holly, my darling, we'd like you to take the next round, and the subject is Sir John Reith.
Is it Sir or Lord? Was he a Sir? Or I always thought he was a Lord. I mean, maybe I should say.
You know who Sir John Reith was?
Well, I thought it was the guy who did the BBC. But
That's right, that's the one,
cool.
that's the one.
No, keep talking, Holly.
So you're writing it down.
Just in case I get the subject. No.
It is Lord John Reith. Actually, when he became head of the BBC, he was Sir John Reith, but he finished up as Lord Reith. But anyway, we've changed it now, and it's Lord John Reith. Or Lord Reith, it should be.
Do they have Sir Lord John Reith?
It's more words
do they just keep adding it up?
Mr.
Sir John
I
Lord
think we'll
Reith.
change the subject to Lord Reith.
Lord Reith.
Lord Reith.
Lord Reith.
And so you have... Oh, yes, haven't started yet, have you?
Goodness me. The next time you haul one of us over the calls for hesitating, for heaven's sake.
Holly, would you talk about Lord Reith?
in 60 seconds if you can, starting now.
Lord John Reith was the Director General of the BBC. He had a fascinating life. Many people don't know this, but...
Miles challenge.
Repetition of B.
Well, there we are, you see.
There'll be letters.
Yes, yes.
And where will they be
heard
addressed
it.
to?
We all heard it. Only one of us pressed that button, no. We all heard it, didn't we?
It's
You
one
heard
of
it, didn't you, Nicholas?
the slip-ups of just a minute if you've never played. You've only played the game once before. BBC.
Repetition.
Repetition of B.
Right.
It's almost like a word to most people. Could have
British
called it,
Bee
you call it the Beeb.
Corporation. You didn't know this, but
The
he
British
was one of
Broad-
the... he was the Director General of the
Or
British
said the
Bee
British
Corporation.
Broadcasting Corporation.
So we don't know what we're calling Lord Reith. We don't know what we're calling the BBC.
But the good news is we've only got a minute.
But we're getting a lot of laughs on the way, which is good. So, Miles, the correct challenge, and you have 53 seconds on Lord Reith, starting now.
To me, Lord Reith will always be simply Sir. It was how he liked to be known in polite circles. Everybody called him that at Christmas, Easter, Chris Tingle.
Holly challenge.
Oh, I'm going to be as pernickety as you were, but you said called twice.
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
Right.
Well, I'm very,
That's
I'm
not
very
being
happy.
picnickety, that's been playing the game, my
She's
darling.
on fire.
You have 43 seconds, you've got another point. You've got the subject back, Lord Reith, starting now.
Lord John Reith was actually shot
Graham challenge.
Repetition of John.
Yes. I said Lord Reith and you changed it to Lord John.
Well, what's on the card?
It says Lord Reith now on the card.
Oh, wow. It was Sir John Reith, and it's gone down to Lord Reith.
And that's your fault. Miss Clever Clogs. We could have all been saying John, but no, you had to say something.
Darling, I do think I established well enough that the subject was Lord Reith. Lord Reith, it's with you, Graham, and there are 41 seconds starting now.
I like to think of Lord Reith sitting in heaven and looking down now and imagining how proud he must be that his vision of a British Broadcasting Corporation has come to this. Ladies and gentlemen, unless I referred to you earlier, but I don't think I did, so I'm pretty safe on that ground. Lord Reith, there, I can refer to him because that is the subject on the card. I'm certain of that. I've said I'm twice. But,
All challenge.
Self-confessed repetition.
Yeah. Self-repetition, definitely.
Yes.
So, Paul, you now have the subject, and you have 9 seconds to go. Lord Reith, starting now.
Lord Reith considered various names. He thought of Lord Funeral, Lord Embalming Fluid, but none of these hit the right tone of respect. So Lord Reith it was.
It does show you can talk rubbish in just a minute as long as you keep going.
Yes.
And Paul kept going to the whistle end, gained an extra point for doing so, and he's equal with Holly Walsh in second place behind Graham Norton, who's in the lead, and Miles, we're with you to begin, and the subject is sledging. I'm sure you know something about that subject in this game, starting now.
Sledging is a tactic used in cricket by people from certain unpleasant nations that are completely opposite to ours on the globe. It is a way of disintegrating people mentally by saying suggestive things about their life partners or children while they're trying to get on with the business of just blocking out a few overs quietly. It was originated...
Paul, challenge.
A bit of a hesitation.
There was a definite hesitation.
what was he talking about?
Cricket.
Oh, right.
The opposition who stand close to the batsman.
No, it's fine.
They
I'll
shout-
Google it later. You're fine.
You've got the... right.
Why is your wife so fat? Because every time I have sex with her, she gives me a biscuit. Or the other way round, I give her a biscuit. Who gets the biscuit? Somebody gets the biscuit.
And who are you talking to?
This game has got a lot more competitive than I thought it was going to be.
Anyway, your challenge was correct, Paul. And you have 40 seconds to tell us something about sledging, starting now.
As it came to the final of the Winter Olympics, I realised I hadn't taken my training seriously. There I was going down the half-pipe, and I'd left me skeleton behind. I was flashing down on me bare underpants, given to me.
Miles challenge.
Repetition of me or my, possibly?
Yes,
depending
you
on...
was going down. So, Miles, you've got it back again with 30 seconds to go on sledging, starting now.
I have always...
Graham challenge.
Hesitation.
Well tried, but it was a bit too sharp.
Gosh, that was very chivalrous of you, Nicholas. Thank you for leaping to my aid with such alacrity there.
Well, it
Goodness
was
me.
so obvious, wasn't it? 29 seconds for you, Miles, on sledging starting now.
I tend to go downhill when I am sitting on a sledge because if I was to go up the way, it would be considerably more difficult and I would have to not rely on gravity, which I do when I'm going in the opposite direction.
Paul challenge.
Repetition of I.
Yeah. 18 seconds are still available, Paul, on sledging starting now.
The Australian cricket team marched out of the pavilion and into the middle of the field. I was the last English batsman. Well, there was another guy at the other end, but there was just me who was the qualified one to take on the Aussie attack. As their bowlers came heading down towards me, I thought, should there be two of them at the same time? But an umpire was one of their fellow compatriots.
Paul, the image of you turning out to play cricket for England was absolutely amazing. But it kept you
You've played
going.
at Lords, haven't you, Nicholas?
I have played at Lords, yes.
Yeah.
For the charity of the Lord's Taverners.
Mm.
I made some runs while I was there too.
And you actually shook hands with W.G. Grace. And said, I want to congratulate you on your first-class debut.
Where were we?
18...
Paul, you're in the lead, 1 ahead of Graham Norton and then 2 ahead of Miles Jupp and 3 ahead of Holly Walsh. And, oh, Paul, it's your turn to begin. The subject is a parachute jump. Tell us something about a parachute jump, if you can, in this game, starting now.
Certainly it's not something I'd like to take on in a conscious state. I'm very afraid of heights, so a parachute jump wouldn't really help me. I suppose you leap out of the aeroplane and immediately you see the ground below you, you pull the ripcord, but then supposing you tug away at this and it comes away in your hand and you think to yourself, isn't that the parachute following it as well? You then think to yourself, luckily I packed a reserve.
Graham Norton challenge.
Repetition of think to yourself.
Think to yourself, yes. Right, so, Graham, correct challenge. You've got in there. Another point to you. 39 seconds are available. A parachute jump is starting now.
After taxidermy, I imagine parachute jumping is one of my greatest passions. I love, at a weekend, just going out to the airfield, saying, "Hey, bud," to the pilot, and hopping on board.
Paul challenge.
Sorry, is this taxidermy or flying? I'm not clear.
They're often combined.
Have you got a challenge when the rules are just...
No, I haven't, no, but I thought I'd share.
I'm going to give you a bonus point because we did enjoy the interruption. And it was an incorrect challenge. And Graham, you have another point. You have 24 seconds available. A parachute jump starting now.
The aircraft goes terribly high, possibly 50, 60, sometimes 100,000 feet in the air. And we hurtle through. Sometimes it looks like space, to be perfectly honest with you. But I feel no fear at all.
Holly challenge.
You just said to be perfectly honest with us, but I don't think you're being honest with us.
I think you would be frightened.
Wow.
Anyway, I don't think you'd go as high as that unless you did a combined jump, you know, with somebody strapped to your back. You wouldn't do...
And your point is, Nicholas?
Are we combining taxidermy and parachute jumping?
No, because I've actually done it for charity.
Is there nothing you won't do for charity?
That woman's had a hold on you for 20 years.
You don't just go up in a parachute like the Red Arrows or something like that.
You don't need to tell me, Nicholas.
So Holly had a correct challenge.
Oh, did she?
Yes, because you couldn't have gone up that. You, with your inexperience, couldn't have gone up to that height.
Inexperience, Nicholas? It's most weekends.
I wouldn't have minded if you hadn't said to be perfectly honest. Otherwise, I would have gone with it.
That's what did it?
Now, Holly, you have the benefit of the doubt. I give them out occasionally. And you have 8 seconds to tell us something about a parachute jump starting now.
I've never been in an actual plane that has... Oh, God.
Miles' challenge.
I'm afraid that sounded a bit like a hesitation.
It did sound like a hesitation, yes. I'm afraid I have to give it against you, Holly. And Miles, you have 4 seconds on a parachute jump starting now.
Graham Norton is my personal skydiving instructor. He takes me to Kent most weekends.
So Miles Jupp receiving as a whistle away gained an extra point. He's one behind Paul Merton, who's equal in the lead with Graham Norton, and Holly Walsh is trailing them just a little hot on their tail. Graham, it's your turn to begin. The subject, a strange one here. Personal hygiene in the 10th century. Why they should think you have personal knowledge of that, I don't know, but try and speak on the subject if you can, starting now.
Deodorant is a word that comes from the 20th century, I believe. I can't be entirely certain, but look it up if you don't believe me. The 10th century...
Oh, double believe.
Oh.
Oh, yes, I believe at the beginning,
that's
and another
awful.
believe.
I feel
well
terrible.
listened, Holly, yes. So, Holly, another point to you and 49 seconds available. Personal hygiene in the 10th century, starting now.
I remember when I was at school, we went round the Chaucer Museum in Folkestone, and they were saying that in medieval times and earlier, around the 10th century, people smelt continually of manure, which explains why I can smell it sitting next to Nicholas Parsons. But I've never, ever...
Darling, I've gone off you very rapidly. Comparing me to the smell of manure.
Oh. In the 10th century?
Not even fresh manure.
No, exactly. In those days, if you didn't pee in a river, you were considered a duke.
So who challenged anyway?
I think we all did, didn't we?
Oh, it was Graham's light came on first.
I'm so chivalrous, you see.
Right.
I threw myself in front of you.
Right.
Like a coat in a puddle.
That's a dangerous thing to do, Graham.
Trust me, it is.
33 seconds available, Graham. Personal hygiene in the 10th century, starting now.
Personal hygiene in the 10th century wasn't great because they hadn't actually invited things like soap or hot water or deodorant.
Is it invited?
Well, I meant to say invented, but you're quite right. I did say invited. They hadn't opened their hearts to the concept.
So another point to you, Holly, and you're 26 seconds. Tell us something about personal hygiene in the 10th century, starting now.
One of the big...
Paul challenge.
Oh, hesitation,
I'm afraid so, Holly, right. Personal hygiene in the 10th century is starting now.
You could usually tell when the traveller was coming home by the smell appearing over the horizon. People were...
Miles challenge.
I'm not sure that smells appear.
Oh, I think you can colloquially say
The
yes.
smell appeared? If you can't see it, I suppose.
Yeah.
Well,
became apparent, I suppose.
Yeah.
I mean, the last time we played this game, Miles, I didn't notice anything, but a smell did appear.
What a gentleman you are, Graham, to bring it
Just
up.
you brought it up.
But if for something to appear over the horizon, though, it suggests that you need to see
yes,
it.
you get the wind in the right direction, it would come over. No, I'm
Listen,
sorry. No,
it
the
seems
benefit
like
of the
I'm
doubt
not
to
in any
Paul.
position to speak about this, given my sort of pate eruption
No,
that's
no,
offended
no.
Graham so much.
No, I think it was a good challenge, but not enough to get a point. And 19 seconds with you, Paul. Personal hygiene in the 10th century, starting now.
In 987, Rufus the Filthy looked out of his bedroom window and saw a costermonger selling costers. He thought to himself, I wonder if he has any soap. So he wandered down the spiral staircase, step by pace, as he reached the ground. And there in front of him was the most terrifying sight he'd seen in all his years.
And Paul Merton then speaks as a whistle when gained that extra point, and he's increased his lead over Graham Norton and Holly Walsh and Miles Jupp in that order. And Holly, it's with you to begin the next round. London pigeons. Tell us something about those pests that we have everywhere in this game, starting now.
I was recently strolling through the streets of London when I found a small square right next to Great Ormond Street Hospital, and right out in front of me was about 200 or...
Miles challenge.
Repetition of right.
Where was the first right?
Moments previously. I distinctly remember hearing
it. Right in front of the hospital and then right out in front of me.
Yeah.
So Miles, well challenged. I can't be very generous to you now since you think I smell of manure.
From the 10th century, remember.
51 seconds, Miles, on London pigeons, starting now.
I collect London pigeons as pets. I've one called Dave, Harry, Oscar, Ernest, Philippe, Philip, Judas, Thomas, Jesus, me.
Graham challenge.
Firstly, that's a lot of names for one pigeon. And hesitation.
Well, also, have you got one pigeon called Jesus, another one called Judas? I mean, is this story
I'm not saying they all got on.
So, Graham, you have 37 seconds on London pigeons starting now.
London pigeons are really pests, it has to be said, and you always feel bad when tourists are stood there, often from Japan, covered in them. Even they don't look pleased, and their friends seem to take a very long time taking the picture. I've said taking twice.
Paul challenge.
Self-confessed repetition. Yet again. Is there anything else you want to tell us?
Nothing.
Right, Paul, 19 seconds on London pigeons starting now.
So anyway, I thought I'd go up to Trafalgar Square. I looked at Nelson, I thought I'm going to have a piece of that. I sat on his head, cracked all day in his back, and I thought I'd go over to Buckingham Baileys. So, I can't. I feel like I'm auditioning for EastEnders.
No, it was over a lovely war, I think.
Oh, yeah, yes, that would have been nice.
Right. So, Holly, you challenged
Well,
first.
if anything, it was more of a sort of intervention to stop him hurting himself.
Yes,
I think it was a sort of...
But it was a definite hesitation. It was
Yeah.
a full stop. So, Holly, you've got him with 9 seconds on London pigeons starting now.
As I walked through this crowd of pigeons, I expected them to part like Moses and the river, but instead they...
Miles challenge.
Moses himself didn't part. It was I believe it was the Red Sea that parted as a result of his...
but I think she conveyed that it was Moses was there.
Well, she might have seen Moses parting for another reason, which is completely fair enough, but it never came up in my theology degree.
I don't think you allowed her to get to the fact.
He did go to school. Miles did go to school.
I don't think you got as far as saying,
You
I
got
know
B
he
plus
had a
in God.
pigeon called Jesus, but that doesn't help you at all. No, I mean, she said Moses, and she was going on to say the parting of the Red Sea, and Moses was part of that.
I mean, if you're completely simpatico with the way Holly's mind works and you're sure that's what she was about to say, Nicholas, then I'm in no position to
But I'm
challenge.
trying to be fair within the rules of just a minute and give the benefit of the doubt to the person who's only played the game once before, unlike yourself, Miles.
Yeah, fair enough, you're fascist.
Well,
the audience are applauding!
There's a difference of opinion. If you think Nicholas is a fascist, dial 098746. If you think he smells of manure from the 10th century, press the red button now.
Honestly, I come on this show in order to try and keep it going and have fun.
Yeah, and what thanks do you get?
And what thanks do I get? I'm compared to manure from the 9th century. I'm called a fascist, and I'm going to resign. Oh, the warmth of
What were they saying?
It sounded like go now.
No, they changed my mind very rapidly.
Exactly. It's a comeback.
It's very bad. 4 seconds are still available, Holly. London pigeons starting now.
Instead of moving, the pigeons stayed where they were, and I caught one with my foot and killed it.
Right. I've just had a message that we're moving into the final round.
Oh.
You are lovely and you can come again. If you can get tickets, I don't know how you do it.
Stay there. Just stay there.
Yes, there is a waiting list. I do apologise to all those people who keep writing in and say there aren't enough tickets available, but there we are. Keep trying because we long to see you here. Let me give you the situation as we move into the final round. Miles Jupp is training only a little in 4th place. It's a very good 4th place, actually. And it's only 2 points behind Graham Norton and Holly Walsh, who are equal in 2nd place, and they are 2 points behind Paul Merton, who's in the lead. And so it's anybody's game if you're interested in the points. I think the fun is more important, but that's beside the point. Miles, it is your turn to begin. And the subject is a nice one, where I would be tonight if I weren't here. A convoluted sentence, but you have 60 seconds to talk on this if you can, starting now.
If I was not here now, which I am, I would be somewhere else, presumably at home, sitting on my sofa, staring at the wall, as I do not own a television, a decision that I've quickly come to regret. Or perhaps I would be wandering the streets, trying to brighten other people's lives for pennies. It's not impossible that I might start juggling or visiting strangers and making threatening remarks, really as a way of passing the time. If I'm not at a recording of Just a Minute, I really am incredibly lost in the world. I just look for ways of filling the time, of running down the clock of my life.
Graham challenge.
Repetition of filling.
Yes. Graham, you have the subject. Where I would be tonight if I were not... She should have been... It's all this abbreviation that we're not here. Weren't here. I don't like it. Right.
Should we change it to Lord Reith?
We could do, couldn't we? Graham, yes? You have the subject, and there are 26 seconds still available. Where I would be tonight if I were not here. Starting...
46 years.
I know. It's such a long subject that I forgot to start now. So Graham will start again. 26 seconds of Graham are available. Where I would be tonight if I were not here, starting now.
If I weren't here, I'd probably be in an aircraft hangar in West London ironing my parachute, which I do most evenings. And after I finish that, and honestly, it's close to an acre in size. They look smaller in the air. That's just an expert tip I'm giving you there. Then I would go to smoothing the thing I wear on it. It's a sort of like a boiler suit, really, with a... Oh!
So Graham Norton was then speaking as the whistle went and gained that all-important extra point for doing so. And let me tell you what has happened as a result of that. Because Miles Jupp trailed a little in fourth place, but it was a magnificent fourth place because he gave great value. Holly Walsh, who's only played the game once before, was in third place. She was 2 points behind Paul Merton, and Paul was 1 point behind Graham Norton, so he's the winner this week. Congratulations to Graham, who always gives good value. And it only remains me to say thank you to these four fine players of the game, Paul Merton, Holly Walsh, Miles Jupp, and Graham Norton. I thank Trudy Stevens, who's helped me with the score. She'd blown a whistle every time the 60 seconds elapsed. We thank our producer, Talusha Gilani, and we are indebted to Ian Messiter, who created this amazing game. And we're very grateful to this lovely audience here in the Radio Theatre who've laughed us along and made us feel wanted and loved. From the audience, and from me, Nicholas Parsons, and the team, thank you. Tune in again the same time when we play Just a Minute!
And Nicholas Parsons and Just a Minute will be back later in the year.